Don Global presents
the DG Recruit podcast on everything headhunting and recruitment. Achieve the life and career you envision. What's up, game changers? It's your host, Don, founder of Don Global, the headhunting and career coaching company helping you achieve the life and career you envision.
This podcast is centered around how to become a market specialist within your business, your recruitment business. And I love this question. I was posed this question from a listener who wanted to ask, how do you really become A through Z a market expert, a market specialist, somebody that your market really knows and can turn to? Well, I have some bad news for you. It's a lot of work, essentially, is what it is. So let's go through what all of this work entails. And I actually love this because I was trained in classic vertical market specialism recruitment methodologies. So a VMS, a vertical market specialist, is somebody who specifically dedicates themselves to niche recruitment, as in I don't deviate outside of my vertical. I only service my existing vertical and my existing vertical only. So this is the VMS model. Now, I was taught this VMS model because this is how I was raised in recruitment. For the first 5 years, that's all I ever did was become market specialism experts for the various markets that I was responsible for. So my first 3 years in recruiting, I spent building out this very tight niche called regulatory writing. So this is like the test case of literally how I built a niche recruitment business, became top biller. In my third year, I was billing over $740,000. And this is back in 2013. And those are all my clients, all my candidates. That's all me, baby. I ain't got no staff. Like that was me billing all the time, you see? And that was a very easy year because by year 3, everyone in my niche vertical market knew me from coast to coast outside of California. California was the only state that I was not allowed to conduct business in because of internal politics. Other than that, I covered every other state. I was the only regulatory writing recruiter in my entire company. They never put another person on my desk because I had dominated it so hard. And I told my boss, I was like, there's no room for 2 people. Like I'm doing all the deals. There's no room. Externally, my competitors could not believe that some random Asian woman out of New York was stealing all their business. They couldn't get a single regulatory writing deal completed without me doing it, essentially. It's kind of crazy. So I completely monopolized that market. And that is why I'm a big believer, big fan, and an expert on vertical market specialist recruitment models, which is highly niche vertical market dominance. And dare I say, like I said, monopoly. That is the game that I'm playing. I'm playing for monopoly. That's my goal. I want to win everything. I want to dominate the entire vertical, take it fully, and stop anyone else from taking a piece of my pie. Because God damn it, that's my pie, and this girl likes to eat. So that's kind of how I look at the thing. All right, so number 1, let's go through it, A to Z, what you need to do if you want to become a true market specialist, like be the dominant player. Number 1 is, I like to use this metaphor, Pokemon, you got to catch them all. That's step 1. You got to catch them all. You got to know every single human being who is worth their weight in the market. So yes, you also need to know the shitty candidates, but more importantly, you need to know who the best candidates are, and you need to start getting your nails and claws sunk into them. So again, to win in a niche market, you need to have the top candidates. And top candidates, obviously, are the hardest to win. They take a lot of time and effort and energy and talent to get them to trust you, get them to like you, get them to remember you, get them to use you, right? So number 1 is you got to catch them all. You got to know everyone. You got to know from the best to the worst. Because again, your value offering to your client is, I know them all. I literally have them all. They're all under my grasp. I have them all. So if I have them all, then it makes it easier for you to access them, isn't it? Right? Makes life easier for you as the client to look through my network and basically pick the one that you want, and I can get you that person. So having it all is a big part of it. So what does having it all entail? Having it all entails that your database literally has every single person that does this job from left to right, from up to down, right? From senior to junior, from coast to coast, from town A to town Z. You need to have every single contact in that market in your database. If you don't have that person, then you're missing critical data. You're missing information. You're missing the opportunity to monopolize, because how could you catch them all if you don't have them all? Right? So number one is you got to have all the contacts. So how do you do that? Well, it requires you to use all the platforms available at your disposal, whether it's LinkedIn, whether it's job boards, whether it's other paid services. You need to have all the data. You need to build out manually, most likely, all of the contacts. You can't just rely on paying someone a fee and then getting a list. Like, that's not all. How do you know they got every single person? Right? You got to put in the effort to build out your entire network. So that's what I did for regulatory writing, and certainly for the market I do today. I add every single person myself. I don't rely on some random person to tell me, oh, here's a database, it's updated. How do I know it's updated? I don't know. You could be lying to me, right? You could be telling me it's all updated. What's the guarantee that your staff or your AI did it correctly? Because I'll tell you, in regulatory writing, a simple example. In a particular company, they call these regulatory writers international documentation managers. Now, if the AI doesn't understand that international documentation managers is another word for medical writers who do regulatory medical writing, not medical writing copy, which is a different market. If the AI does not know this information, how am I going to add that person to my database? Conversely, if the AI thinks that all medical writers are the same, how many erroneous medical writers will I have in my database? Quite a bit. There are plenty of medical writers that do medical writing, PR, marketing, copy, nothing to do with regulatory writing whatsoever. It's a completely different market. So you can even have the same titles mean completely different things, which is why I do not trust technology. Technology cannot replace the effort, the talent, the work that goes into recruitment. It cannot, because it's too tight. It's too niche, right? So number one is you got to put your back into it and make sure that your data is correct, because God forbid you start sending out mass mailers to the wrong people. This is how you get marked as spam. You can kiss your business goodbye. Once you start messaging people wrong information, you're done. It doesn't matter how good your message is. If the person who gets it is the wrong person, they'll mark you as spam. Be like, what is wrong with you? Did you not even look at my profile? Right? So again, I really highly discourage anyone from taking shortcuts. There are no shortcuts to millions of dollars, okay? I've been there, I've done it. There are no shortcuts. Although I'm not the smartest person in the world, I'm not the dumbest. There aren't any shortcuts. If there were, trust me, I would have taken them. But it takes time to build a network. It takes time and effort to properly build out a database. So I've talked enough about this. Build your database, build it correctly, get every single person that is relevant to your niche market involved. Second step, everyone needs to receive some sort of digital contact from you. So this digital contact could be emails, could be LinkedIn messages, could be voice messages, could be, not voice messages, video messages, right? These are digital format of a way that you can get in contact with your network. Now you have to figure out, should I write an essay to these people, or should I write a quick note? Hey, I love your background in medical writing. I specifically recruit for the regulatory side of medical writers. I think it could be helpful if we hopped on an introductory call confidentially. When are you free? That's my preference. I don't like to write gigantic messages like, hello, I am the esteemed regulatory writing recruiter, and my company works with a number of pharmaceutical. No shit, Sherlock. Don't write all that junk. Right? People don't need to, of course that's what you do. That's your goddamn job. I don't have to say, oh, I work at Joe Schmo Pharmaceutical Company and we make drugs and this is what we do. Blobbity, 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 blobbity. Do you want to talk to me? No. You just spent the last 60 minutes talking about yourself and not me. Remember, customers don't give a crap about you. They only care about themselves. So you have to give them a very short information, very little, less is more, of why you want to get in contact with them. Hey, I'm headhunting you for a specific role. Would love to walk you through the role particularities. When are you free to chat? That's just one way of communicating with your network, right? The digital digital means. The second is to actually the manual, the physical way. So this is the third thing that you have to do to be a market specialist. You need to golden loop. You need to stay in touch with your golden loop. Now, I've made another podcast about this, so go back and look for it. Your golden loop, you need to stay in touch with them. Golden loop are people that are top of the line in your market that absolutely people want to know about, like customers, clients want them. And these are your golden loops. Also, who's in your golden loop? Customers, clients. Customers and clients, candidates, whatever. All of them are in your golden loop. The best of the best get at least hear from you once a month. This is kind of like Brian Buffini's real estate course. When I was a realtor, when I was like 20 years old, I took this course by Brian Buffini, and he literally just talked about this concept of working through referral. And that is the exact same thing as what a golden loop will do for you in recruiting. So a golden loop means you have this network of people that are clearly tagged in your CRM. So you can pull up your golden loop every single month. You call them. They hear from you once a month. So every month, the hiring managers of all the top pharmaceutical companies get personal phone calls from you. Hi, I want to talk to you. How are you doing? How are things going? And that builds the relationship. They know you're in business. They know that you're recruiting. They know that you're still around. Even if they don't pick up the phone, at least you left a voicemail. Hello, I'm so happy to hear, your business is doing well. Saw on the press release. Seems like Joe Schmo Company is doing great. Like, would love to just touch base sometime. Obviously, I'm still recruiting. Would love to keep you updated on the market of what I see on the candidate side of things. Let's stay in touch. Hope you're doing well. Golden loop, check in with everyone. They need to hear from you once a month. That is the goal. So year 3, building 740, chilling like a villain, all I was doing was golden looping. Because by that age, at that point in the market, 3 years, I knew every single person from Ohio to New York to Florida. Literally, there wasn't a single medical writer that I didn't know. And if there was one new person that would pop up, I'd be like, welcome. I was like fucking like godmother. I was like, welcome to the industry. I'm the headhunter that you need to know. Nice to meet you. That was my reputation in that market. It was crazy because that's how well I networked with that's how well people knew me because I spent 3 years calling them all the time, right? Calling them every month. So every month I check in. How's your kid? How's your dog? How's your wife? How's your husband? How's your children? How's your life? How's your house? How's your weather? What are your vacation plans? How's your dog? Literally, that is what I did every single month was call people. And they heard from me. It's a contact sport, right? So getting in touch with people, actually calling and cold calling and warm dialing, regenerating candidates and clients, that's our job. So there's the digital element that I talked about, and now there's the manual element that I also talked about. Let's get even more manual. Number 4, meetings. Okay, meetings. Getting out there to actually physically wine and dine clients and candidates. Another humongous effort that I put on weekends. On weekends, I would drive to Jersey. I would take candidates out to brunches, to lunches, to dinners, to coffees. When I did executive search when I was 26, I did the same thing. I literally just booked myself with meetings. That's all I did. Wine and dine. Take people out to fancy places and just wine and dine them. That was my job as an executive search person at the end of my experience with my first recruiting firm, right? So that's how I built another $600,000 desk, right? In 2 years, that one was even less because executives are much more lucrative. And I wasn't even working that hard. All I was doing was meeting people, taking them out. They have to know you. You have to be in their face. Once you take them out to lunch and dinner and you're always adding value to them, they're going to respect you a little bit more than the other recruiter who isn't doing any of that. Right? Obviously, people buy from human beings. So the more human you are to them, the more face-to-face, the more they get to know you, the more money you're going to make. It's a very, very people business, right? So meetings is number 4. Number 5, webinars. How can you be a market expert if no one ever hears from you to see that you are truly a market expert? We have technology today. webinars. You host a webinar, you use it as a BD tool to talk to people about your webinars and what you're going to create. And I hope you can make it. And I'm going to send you on my email list so you can get the webinar invites. These are all reasons and ways of how to build A, your email list, B, to get people to come to your speaking engagements so they can see you speak and talk and get to know you in a more human level. Right? Webinars. That's another huge thing. Number, what is it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6, events. Now, events are different. You put together your own sponsored events, company events. So like, hello, we're going to do a karaoke night at DG Recruit. That is an event that I would host for DG Recruit, my recruiting business, right? I would constantly host these like fun events because I felt at the time in my business before I was really quote unquote famous, I was like, hey, I'm going to just start throwing local events to spread the word far and wide, drum up events. So that was a choice. After COVID, we kind of stopped. Nowadays, I'm pregnant, like no offense. I'm not going to go out there and party hard like I used to, but events for people in the beginning stages of growing their market specialism, you need to do everything you can. Right? When you first start off in your career, you need to do everything you can. Ideally, you do everything all throughout your career, but let's be honest, I have the privilege of not having to do all this stuff anymore. But that's an earned privilege. Before I got to this level, I had to do all of this. So events is another humongous thing you have to do. Throw on karaoke nights, throw on PF Chang happy hours. I used to do that a lot in Jersey for executives. I would just pick a place for happy hours, sponsor the whole thing, get all the executives to come and meet and greet, and they loved it. Oh my God, they would just come and hang out and eat and drink for free and socialize with other industry people. Like you can literally do this in any city and state. You just find a restaurant that has a happy hour and you do it. I know Boston outlawed happy hours, but still, like it's not a humongous cost if you think about all the money you actually make from all of the placements, right? And it's great publicity, and publicity is priceless. So there you go. Events is huge. These are company sponsored, you led, you create and market your own events. Number 7, conferences. Now, there are certain industries that have certain conferences that you must be at. Those are like must invest in businesses. So like for pharmaceutical companies, it's the DIA, Drug Information Association. The DIA every year, it's like you gotta go. JP Morgan conference for startups and biotechs, you gotta go. These are just like places that you need to be because that's where all your customers are gonna be. So you gotta be available to go to those places. For medical writing, it was AMWA, American Medical Writers Association. So I became a speaker at AMWA and started doing career consultations, as in like career coaching presentations for the organization for free. Obviously our company paid for my attendance and whatnot, but I would just do these shows like conferences to go and speak as a career coach. And that way people would look at our firm and say, wow, they're really well known in the medical writing space. Not only that, she has a lot of really great career advice, right? So that's another way that you can be a market expert because you're a speaker at these conferences. You're out there, your branding is out there, you're presenting yourself in a credible way. And I've seen some of my competitors do this in agency recruiting, which, to be honest, I think is a bit of a waste of time because our industry works so differently than other industries. So again, conferences, if it's important for your industry, you got to invest in it. Do I invest in conferences now? Hell no. The conferences that exist right now for staffing are woefully outdated. The networks are so stale, not interested. Like, I don't need to go to those conferences, right? But medical writing, I had to be there. DIA, I had to be there. In fact, I made a placement off of a candidate I met at one of the conferences, right? Every single year, you could trace a placement back to a candidate I met at one of these conferences. And again, in agency recruiting, what I do now, recruiting agency recruiters, I do not need to go to any conferences. I'm sorry. Like, I'm not going. There just isn't the right conference for me to go to. So you do have to know in your market, is the conference worth going to? Because it's a financial expense. If it is, go. You're more than, equipped to handle it, and you should, right? So conferences is another humongous thing, and that's market to market. Now, I'm going to have another last bucket here. It's number 8. It's called the other bucket. So what are other things that you can do to make yourself a market expert? If you really wanted to, you can start a podcast. Yeah, I know it's a lot of work. I didn't do it for medical writing because it wasn't my company. Like, I did not own my old employer. So I did not start a podcast. When I started DG Recruit, this is my company. I started a podcast, and that's the one you're listening to now, DG Recruit Podcast. I started another podcast when I first quit recruiting in career coaching, Daily Don. That's another podcast that I had, right? Podcasts are a natural place where you can build more followers. Same with blogs, same with YouTube channels, same with interviews, right? So I interview a lot of people on my podcast, and I also put them up on my YouTube page. I also write about them in my articles, right? So these are other things that you can also do, but I say it's other because unless you own the firm, it's almost like no point doing all that because it's like too much free marketing you're doing for your company. Like, let's be real. If you work at Joe Schmo recruiting firm, especially if it's a large recruiting firm, you do not need to do like 90% of this shit. You honestly don't, because it's unless you really take a personal interest in becoming famous in your market, which I did, because financially that's what it meant to me. If I became famous in my market, it would mean that I would be financially the most enriched. And that was true. Right? Making $215,000 when you're 25 years old, pretty damn good lifestyle in 2013. Then I took that money and put it into real estate. Shit doubled and tripled, right? So it's like, yeah, if you want that money, you got to do all of this. You got to do all of this shit. If you're happy being a mediocre, middle of the road recruiter, you don't have to do any of this. Honestly, you can just sit out on probably numbers 4 to 8, you know? So again, commitment. How far do you want to succeed? How successful do you want to get? This is the shit that contributes to it. All of it in today's terms, right? In today's terms, what kind of amazing headhunter who's a market specialist doesn't host events or doesn't host webinars or doesn't produce a podcast or doesn't regularly post relevant articles to their niche market every single week? What kind of top producer in these spaces are not meeting their clients and candidates in person? Again, you're in a competitive environment where other people are doing the same shit you're doing, and they're doing all of this, or they're doing variations of it. So the reality is we live in a very competitive space in which there's a limited piece of pie. And the bigger piece of pie that you want, the more effort that you're going to have to put into getting that piece of pie. And so in Chinese, we call this 吃奶, like eat milk. I want to see that eat milk energy. I want to see that you really want this milk. I want to see you like you a baby and you really want to eat milk and you have that energy. That's what I'm talking about. I want to see that you're really hustling for it, because unless you really do all of this shit, you can't credibly say that, oh, the market's hard, or that like, oh, so-and-so has it easier. Nah, you just didn't do all of this shit. Right? The majority of recruiters don't do all of this shit, and which is why they actually struggle and work longer hours. They work longer hours because they're consistently kind of slacking and not doing it properly, right? If you just kind of did this right from day one, you would be a market expert already by year 3. You wouldn't have to like reinvent the wheel every single year hustling for clients. Like, you got to start over every single month. A lot of candidates that I talk to, obviously I recruit agency recruiters, they complain about that. They're like, oh, well, you know, I'm starting over again this year. What the fuck does that mean? What do you mean you're starting over this year? It means you have no network. That's wrong. That should never come out of your mouth. You shouldn't be starting over. You should be working off of your existing foundation. But where is your foundation if you don't have one? Right? This is foundation. So let's go through the 8 things one last time. If you really want to be a market expert, these are all the things you need to consider, if not engage in. Number 1, you got to catch them all. Number 2, everybody needs to receive digital weekly engagement from you in some way, shape, or form. That could be social media, that could be digital, that could be email outreach, whatever. Number 3, you need to get manual with people. You actually have to call people and speak to people on a monthly basis. Every single person in your network needs to hear from you every single month. You got to put in the effort and speak to them. Number 4, meetings. You got to go and meet people. Take time out of your day to meet the key players. Number 5, webinars. Host webinars to promote your brand. Number 6, host events to promote your brand. Number 7, go to conferences. Speak eligibly, speak intelligently, speak legibly. That's what I meant to say. So conferences. Number 7, you got to show face. You got to be where you got to be if it's important to your market. If it's not important to your market, don't waste your time and money. Number 8, Other items include podcasts, blogs, interviews, articles, what have you, PR, writing articles that get picked up by other methodologies, whether it's TV media or Time Magazine or Fortune. There's a lot of helpareporter.com or .org, something like that. Helpareporter.com or .org. I can't remember which one. There are tons of free showings there. So I did this last tip. So helpareporter.com, I actually went on there and I started looking through the articles and I started posting stuff in response to those prompts. And people literally would just say, oh, Donda's featured in Joe Schmo publication. And it's because helpareporter.com is a good source of getting good stuff. Obviously, it's time consuming. But basically, it's like a prompt. You put in your information. You write the piece of content. They actually put it out for you to these other outlets. That is the same thing I did with Quora. Quora, I still have an active author account, even though I haven't written anything in a very long time. I make residual income from Quora because I used to post a lot of articles on Quora.com. And Quora actually pays me for views, as well as they put your publication to legit websites like Apple News, Business Insider, like Forbes. It's kind of crazy, right? Got me a lot of free perks, got me a lot of good stuff. I'm telling you, Quora.com, if you really want to be famous, you got to put in a lot of effort. I mean, this just takes effort. So anyways, I hope this was helpful. I know I come off a little strong. It all comes from a good place. I just want people to understand the effort that it takes to get famous in a market. It's not easy. It takes a lot of investment, which is why you make so much more money if you do it right. So I hope this gives you some ideas of what you can incorporate into your business. It doesn't have to be all of it, but especially if you own a practice, this is the cost if you really want to be famous, right? So again, you just got to set your target right and be okay with the outcome. If you're okay being at the 75 percentile, you don't have to do a lot of this. If you want to be in the top 1%, you're probably going to have to do most of this.